Welcome back, everybody. I'm Alderman Dave Tenza here, doing a series of segments with candidates who are running for election this fall in the state elections, running for both the state Senate and the state House of Representative. We're fortunate to be joined today by Representative Sue Newman from Ward 2 here in the city. Sue, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us.
And Sue, you are currently representing Ward 2.
I am.
In the legislature. And so can you tell folks a little bit about yourself, you know, maybe your background, what you've seen up there in Concord, and why you're running again?
Sure. Well, my husband Ray and myself have lived in Nashua, same house, same ward since 1981. And when we moved to Nashua, I pretty quickly got involved with it was called the Nashua Kindergarten Coalition way back then. And there was a group of us, and we helped get public kindergarten started in Nashua before it was put together by the state to get it rolling. So did that, was a selectman in the ward, PTO president at Charlotte Avenue School. The kids went there. I served on the Board of Education for 8 years, 1988 to 95. And then I seemed to take a rest and help everybody else with all of their campaigns. And well, it would have been in 2016, I thought, no, might be a good time to run for the State House. I am above the ground, and I'm still real active and still stay very concerned about what's going on with our state and community.
Yeah, well, and thank you for doing that. A lot of people know that it's anyone who served knows it's a tremendous personal sacrifice of time and energy to both run and serve up in Concord. So what issues have been important to you for this first term, and then what do you hope to focus on if you're reelected this fall?
The committee assignment I got was Public Works and Highways. I knew nothing about it, but I learned, and I was playing catch up and learning as I went. The first year, the Public Works and Highways deals with the capital budget, and that's really running the infrastructure and the departments in the state. The second year is the 10-year transportation plan. I brought up the rail study money a lot during the first year, and people kindly were saying it'll probably be better to bring it up during the 10-year transportation plan the following year. So we did, and I was initially pretty excited that $4 million in federal funds was allocated to do the commuter rail study, engineering study, a study. That's all, a study getting done to get commuter rail, and they were dealing with the Capital Corridor. But when everything got done and when a final vote got taken on the final 10-year transportation bill, that was eliminated again. I found that hugely frustrating. One of my committee colleagues, her only question was, why aren't we doing this again? Don't we want to have the question answered as to whether this is a feasible thing to go forward with or not? Because it just keeps coming up again and again. So I found that frustrating.
Yeah, and so it is frustrating, and for a lot of people in Nashua here who believe it would be a great have an impact just on our quality of life for a lot of folks and different reasons. And so what do you have hope that if elected you'll be able to get that back in the 10-year transportation plan and actually get it through? I don't recall whether it was the Senate or the governor who took it out of the plan.
Yeah, I think the governor, I'm going to guess that the governor probably led the way to encourage it being taken out. He was the one who initially had it in there, and that was back when Amazon was making some hints that maybe they would be coming to the state of New Hampshire. But then after that, it was, I believe the Republican leadership just didn't want it. The overwhelming testimony that we heard at the public hearing on it was to do it. This would greatly impact, to the benefit, in my belief, Nashua, Manchester, the airport, and the Capital Corridor could right up to Concord. With the thought being it's going to take traffic, a lot of traffic, off of the highways going south, and it's going to help facilitate getting workers up into New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire, and into the technology areas Nashua and Manchester.
Right. Yeah, and it's too bad. It's too bad that this is a fight that we still have to
I know.
struggle with in Nashua. I know that the city's doing what it can to try
Yes.
to bring some rail just to show that it will be successful
Yeah.
here. But that's why we need good people like you back up in Concord to fight for this and to push it through.
Okay.
And so your other issues that you're concerned about, I know that you're a advocate for common sense gun legislation.
I am.
Both in Concord and at the federal level. What have you been doing on that issue, and what progress do you think can be made on that issue?
Well, I think what is hugely frustrating is that well over 80%, probably into the 90% of people that you ask, almost anybody you ask, would agree that a background check for a firearm purchase makes sense and isn't something that should be likened to taking away somebody's right to have a firearm. It just makes sense. And there was a bill, I don't recall the number, the legislative number of it, but it would have had a transfer process with the firearm. Background check could have been part of it, and that it got killed. I was especially disappointed to see that the permit that had been in place in New Hampshire for a concealed carry permit, it was minimal. I think it was $10 for a 2-year permit for your concealed carry. Maybe it was even for 4 years, and that got taken away also. I understand the argument that if you have a weapon, you should be able to conceal carry, but many of us felt that going through the actual permit process at your local police department and having your permit granted to you inside of a 2-week turnaround period made sense, and it was just one last shred of oversight on a firearm. And that got defeated as well.
Yeah, it's another frustrating issue where it seems like there should be some consensus to move forward on the issue, both locally in Concord and nationally, and just hasn't come about because of all the special interests. But it's another reason why we need to elect people who are passionate and dedicated to continuing to fight these fights.
The only thing I would add with that is that I truly believe that the Second Amendment is not in any way impacted by any common sense legislation. I think they both can coexist, should coexist, and I have found many reasonable people that agree with that. It's just that the votes have not been able to be there yet.
Unfortunately. And so you talked about your time on the Board of Education here in Nashua, and so you probably have a special insight that to education and education funding or policy and funding that other people may not have. So how do you think the state can help support local education better than it's doing now?
Well, I hate to say it. No, I guess I don't hate to say it. A lot of it comes down to money, and there just has to be the resources that are coming adequately down adequately. I would transfer that. They have to be coming down appropriately for our public education throughout the state. Downshifting has occurred so that if things don't get paid up in Concord, they pass down to the local level. I was especially against an educational savings account plan. One of my colleagues called it almost a scheme where there'd be a middleman taking money, and that could go to a voucher for a home, religious, private, charter school. I am not totally against charter schools. I think they serve a purpose, and I have respect for the parents who choose to send their children or do a different kind of education for them. However, when it impacts our public education negatively, I feel strongly we have to promote, sustain, and support public education. That's what our country, that's what we deserve for all of our citizens.
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think that we're under such a strain at the local level to try to fund all these things like education, police, fire. we've seen the Board of Aldermen is that it's we have to make choices, and there are a lot of things that we can't do because money that we were expecting to come from the state just a couple years ago is no longer there. And unfortunately, it's the governor and the legislature, as it's constituted now, is happy to make us at the local level the bad guys. But
it's difficult. I mean, your budgets are your priorities. So at the state level, if a priority is not funded, it doesn't become a priority, and then if that negative impact filters down to our local community.
Right. And so you helped start kindergarten here in Nashua, which up until the last couple of years was half day.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about how it's funded now, whether it's a good sustainable source of funding? Or?
Well, I was struggling with the Keno kindergarten, the whole procedure, the process of it, and there was a very experienced a legislator that I respect tremendously. I had a chat with him on the way up to Concord one day. I said, I can't do it. I think using Keno as a source of funding, and he said, this is a tough one, but he asked if I could support it because it's gonna provide the funding for kindergarten. And he said, we don't have a lot of other options. So it was one of those, it was a learning moment. It's like, yeah, you might think that this is totally wrong and you can't do it, but the reality is, are you better off with it or without it? We were better off keeping and having some funding coming through for kindergarten for more of our children. That was the position I took.
Yeah, and I think that's, it's a testament to you to be able to listen and to reassess positions or maybe no legislation is perfect. That's just not how our government was set up to work. But you have to make compromises in order for the greater good. So that's probably one of those compromises that people aren't happy with. But if it means more kids are getting an earlier start to their education, kids who may not otherwise have, or they may have needed that full day, then at the end of the day, it's better off.
It's a better thing
for our communities. Great. Yeah. And so, if people want to get more information about your candidacy, what's your campaign plan? Now, you do have a primary in Ward 2.
We have primary in Ward 2, and my situation is a little different because my husband is also running. We've been asked, are you running against each other? No, we're running together alongside, in conjunction with. So we're both out there walking through the ward. People will see us. I usually wear a visor hat when I'm out, but my white hair sticks right out above it. So if you see me out walking on the streets with a clipboard in hand, it's me. Don't hesitate to stop. We've been meeting and re-meeting many of our citizens in Ward 2. They're good people. And from families to the seniors to people that have health issues themselves or are health care providers for a family member, these are good people, and that's why I'm continuing to do this.
And Ward 2 is a great ward. It's great to canvass and walk around.
It is.
You vote at Charlotte Ave
Charlotte
Elementary
Avenue
School.
Okay.
Yeah. The primary is Tuesday, September 11th.
September 11th, right.
And we probably should say that there are three spots on the ballot.
3 spots, and 4 of us are running. So it's good when people kind of look at us like, you're both here. I say you've got half of the Democratic ballot right in front of you right now. So that's it.
And we got a minute left. As far as Ward 2, what are the issues that have come up, or do you think is maybe unique to Ward 2 that you've learned?
From the parents, especially the ones who have children at elementary school and the middle schools as well. Public education is a big thing. The funding for it, adequate funding. Class sizes is important. Health care issues, I feel strongly. Everybody in New Hampshire should have access to health care, and that includes substance abuse treatment, mental health access for treatment for that. So those are issues that come up.
Great. Is there anything else in the final seconds that you'd like people to know about you? Did you give do you have a Facebook page or an email address or
We
anything?
use our email address.
Okay.
It's snewmanh@aol.com. That's mine. My husband's, he'll give his.
Okay.
And we're out and about. We're accessible. People can call us, and you'll see us out walking around.
Great.
Okay.
Representative Newman, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Alderman Tenzer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we'll be back in a couple of minutes with our next guest. Thank you. That's it.
I can get up.